Hey everybody, welcome back, and today I have another 5 products video for you guys. And today's category is going to be Valentine's Day inspired or appropriate palettes that you probably have sitting in your collection. Now, I know this time of year has really become almost like Christmas, where, you know, companies are coming out with Valentine's Day collections. ColourPop is coming out with their collection. Who else? Pat McGrath, Divine Rose 2, Natasha Denona Love, the whole mini thing. I mean, they're just everywhere and we're inundated. And don't get me, you know, I feel you. I've given into some of the hype on some of those too. It happens. But if you are somebody that is on a no buy or a low buy and you're lusting after one of these palettes, then maybe you have some palettes in your collection that would do the trick for you and give you a beautiful, romantic, soft, vampy, sexy, whatever it might be, Valentine's Day inspired look. Now, I actually have videos on all 5 of these palettes. Most of them are relatively old. One of them is from the first year I had my channel back in 2013, 2014. So it is funny how quiet and I am in that video and how like bad my lighting is. I think I was filming on my phone with a mirror behind it so I could see, and like lamps, and I think there was like some aluminum foil going on. So if you want to laugh, definitely I will link all these up above. But if you want to see the 5 palettes I picked out of my collection that I think are perfect and Valentine's Day appropriate, then stick around. All right, first let's talk about the one that I have on my eyes, and I just filmed a tutorial for this one. It should be up already, and that is the Colored Raine Queen of Hearts palette. This palette is so good. It's still so good. It's so beautiful. I mean, and this is a palette that you could take either way. You could do more neutral by going with Princess, Duchess, you know, Royal, Prerogative, Heir, Her Highness, which is what I have on my eyes today. Or you could definitely take this more pinky purpley. Or you could do a mix of both, which is what I did on my eye today. It's such a beautiful palette. It was everybody's favorite for such a long time. It was the gold standard for very good reason. And I know it's kind of been forgotten about, but this is still such a good palette and the quality is fantastic. I want to say, I know the quality of the mattes in here is beautiful. Ladyship is a little bit hard to blend out and work with in comparison to the rest of them, but I mean, I had no problems with it today. So I love this palette. It is still so beautiful. And this is just, I feel like this palette was a moment in makeup history. I feel that way about a lot of these palettes. And I think this is just absolutely a gorgeous palette. And if you have it in your collection, maybe it's time to dust it off and show it some love because it's amazing. The next palette I want to talk about, I don't think I did like a tutorial on, but I did a whole dedicated review on when it came out. And that is the Pur Visionary Palette. This was kind of coming out at the height of Pur coming out with really kind of more popular palettes. They had the Beauty Boxy Charm collab. They had the Soiree Diaries, which I feel like overshadowed this palette. I do not know why. This palette's actually still available, and I love this palette. It is so gorgeous. It's very much reminiscent of the Queen of Hearts in the bold purple colors, the bold pinks. The metallics in here are out of this world. I mean, they remind me very much of like the Gimme Glow formula. So this palette's really cool because they are magnetic. You can pull these out, put them in a Z palette, mix them around. Really cool concept. I wish more brands did this, but this palette I feel like really flew under the radar. And just like the Queen of Hearts palette, you can go more purpley and pinky. You can go more neutral with this palette. This Idealist shade is gorgeous. It's not a matte, but if you want to create a shade with Tycoon, Role Model, which I love that shade, and Idealist, you would essentially have an all matte look. It's a satin, but it's essentially a matte on the eye. Really gorgeous palette. Like I said, this is still available at Ulta, and I think just one of the most underrated palettes that has come out in the past few years. The next palette I want to talk about is that tutorial that I did that is just so funny for me to go back and watch, and that is the Naked 3. And again, I know some people were not really like these palettes were so big and they were so hyped up when they first came out, and then they just kind of fell off. This for me is still a beautiful palette. If I ever do bridal makeup, this is a palette that I bring along with me because it's so gorgeous. And it's one of those shades where people are like, oh, there's not enough mattes in it, but really Dark Side and Blackheart work great in the outer corner. And I think in that tutorial, I actually used both of them in the outer corner, and I think it turned out great. I love Limit. Limit is one of my favorite Nooners, some of my favorite mattes. This Dust shade, it's one of those chunky, like flaky, glittery shades, but when you get it on the eye wet, it's beautiful. I love this palette. This palette is still just a favorite for me. It's so nostalgic. It's the first big palette I ever bought from Urban Decay. So again, I feel like this was just a moment. And maybe while the first 3 Naked palettes especially were just a moment in makeup history, this was like a moment for me when I really started getting into makeup and realizing what I could do with it and how it made me feel. And so I love this palette. I think it's amazing. And I know a lot of you have it out there in your collection. Maybe it's time to pull it out and give this one some love. So we'll always love the Naked 3. It's amazing. Another palette that kind of goes right along with the Naked 3, which I feel like these palettes, again, I feel like they're flying under the radar, and these are such good palettes. And this is the Revealed 2. This is definitely the Naked 3 dupe, but it also got deeper, and I love this palette. You can see mine is very well loved. This is that, I can't remember which palette I was talking about that I was doing a tutorial for when I was talking about those chunky, flaky shades that you really have to work with. This is that shade, and I have almost hit pan on it. I love this. I love this palette. The mattes in here are a little bit drier, especially this deeper, darker shade, but they just blend out so beautifully on the eye. The shimmers are really pretty. This is just a really gorgeous, versatile palette. And I know a lot of people were buying these when the Naked palettes first came out because they were such an affordable dupe. So I know Naked, the first Revealed was like the Naked 1 and 2 dupe. This was like the expanded version of the Naked 3. And these are still palettes that I go to every now and then because I just think they're great for travel because they're giving me the colors that I want. And that's when I tend to bring them out because I like to, you know, when we do travel, I miss that. When we do travel, we like to dress up and go to dinner and stuff. So these are the kind of palettes I bring. So this is a great date night palette. It just has got, you can go vampy in here. You can go sexy and sultry and smoky. You can do something lighter, something a little bit more romantic and soft. And I just think the versatility in these palettes are amazing. So if you have this palette in your collection, bust it out. It's so good. They're still good. I really, really love these. The Revealed palettes for me are like the ultimate travel palettes. Or the last palette I want to talk about is not only a very special palette for me because it was like no, it wasn't my first Anastasia palette, but it was just a makeup moment. But this palette, I'm talking about the Modern Renaissance. Daniel surprised me with this palette when I hit 1,000 subscribers. And it is by no means my most used Anastasia Beverly Hills palette. I love this palette. I have a ton of her palettes. So this one just doesn't make the rounds as often as it should. But this is a palette I'll never get rid of. But I know everybody and their mother has this palette. And that's because it's so good. And again, this is a palette that can go more neutral. It could go more in your face. I think Anastasia Beverly Hills shades, or her formula, lends itself more to a softer, more romantic, blown out type of look, which this palette, I created a really beautiful halo eye with this look that I just loved. And again, I'll link that tutorial up above. But this is such a gorgeous, romantic Valentine's Day palette. And I think, you know, like I said, this was such a crazy revolutionary moment when it came out, and it just kind of changed the makeup game. It wasn't the first palette that looked like that. That would be the Venus, the Lime Crime Venus palette. That was the first one. But Lime Crime was going through some crazy stuff, and we're getting a lot of criticism, and rightly so. And this palette came out and just changed the game. It's just so good. And I think so many people have it, and we forget we have it because we're so inundated with all the new stuff that's coming out. Oh, Natasha Denona. Oh, ColourPop. Oh, Pat McGrath. I mean, there's so many ready palettes that are coming out right now. So yeah, Modern Renaissance, we forget about it. I don't know why, because it was such a big deal, but it's still, I feel like this the quintessential Valentine's Day romantic palette. All right, everybody, so those are just the 5 Valentine's Day inspired themed palettes that I went through my collection and found that I love and still use and would be totally appropriate for date night, Valentine's Day, whatever you want to use them for. And of course I went with a more pinky themed, but you know, that's just what I was feeling. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, I hope you all have an amazing, happy, wonderful, safe, responsible Valentine's Day. Wear a mask. And until next time, have an awesome day, have a rockin' week, and I will see you then. Bye, guys.
Yeah.